I would like to speak a few words regarding our brothers and sisters in Palestine. Most of us know the history of Palestine and how was the Israel state formed. We know that Hitler incinerated 6 million Jews. It was a Holocaust. And these Jews, they scattered to different parts. And many of them, they came to Palestine, and our Muslim brothers in Palestine gave them shelter. They said, Ahlan wa sahlan to the cousins. The Jews are the cousins of the Muslims, the Arabs. The Palestinian Arab Muslims, they welcomed their cousin, the Jews. They gave them shelter, they gave them protection, and they allowed them to come to the land. But unfortunately, several years later, the same people who were refugees, they kick out the host out of the land. Imagine the owner of the house is kicked out, and now when the Palestinians are fighting for their rights, they're screaming that this is our land. These Israelis and the Westerners, they're calling them as terrorists. There is a saying in Hindi, Ulta chor kotwal ko date. That means the robber is scolding and blaming the policeman for the robbery he has done. And we know this is common, that those people who are in power, they control the media. And as you know, the media can convert black into white, day into night, hero into a villain, villain into a hero. So today the media, the international media, most of them, they are painting as though these Palestinian Muslim brothers and sisters who are fighting for their freedom, they are being called as terrorists. And this is common, we know that in history. And we know that the Britishers, the French, the Portuguese, they ruled 2/3 of the world. They occupied 2/3 of the world. And the biggest people who did maximum atrocities in the world are the Britishers. But they change the history and they tell, we have gone to different parts of the world to uplift them. They did nothing but robbed many countries of the world. They looted many countries of the world, including the country where I was born, that is India. And when people fought for their freedom, we know Bhagat Singh, he was a great freedom fighter. These Britishers at that time, they called him as terrorist number one. But we Indians, we called him as a freedom fighter. We had to respect him, we had to revere him. In the 18th century, when Britishers ruled America, George Washington, he was fighting for the freedom of America. And by the Britishers, he was called as terrorist number one at that time. But the Americans, they called him a freedom fighter. And when USA got its freedom, they made him the first president of USA. Imagine the person who was called the terrorist by the British government, USA makes him the first president of USA. So many a times, the person who's subjugated is labeled by the media as a terrorist. We have several examples. We have an example in South Africa when Nelson Mandela was fighting against the white apartheid government. The white apartheid government called him a terrorist and imprisoned him in Robben Island for more than 25 years. He was called the terrorist number one at that time. When South Africa gets its freedom, they make Nelson Mandela, he's elected as the president of the country. And we know this history. On the other hand, when the freedom fighters are called as terrorists, On the other hand, the media is painting the terrorists as great people. We know that the bombing that was done in King David Hotel, where many people were killed, many Jews were killed, many Muslims were killed, and Menachem Begin at that time, he was the person who did this bombing. Later on, that same terrorist, he is made the president of Israel, the prime minister of Israel. The terrorist, and then he gets the Nobel Prize for Peace. Imagine, the person was a terrorist, actual terrorist. Later on, the world gives them a Nobel Prize for Peace. This is all done by the media. The media can convert black into white, day into night, hero into a villain.